Welcome back to ESM Squared, the podcast for experienced social media marketers. This is part 2 of my interview with Geoff from digital agency Syatt. In part 1, he shared some great theories and strategies to try out on TikTok, some key figures that he uses for performance tracking. He tells me all about how he does his reporting for his clients depending on their business objectives, some really valuable insights from Geoff about where to be on social media, and how to adapt content to each channel. In fact, everything Geoff shared with me was really insightful. Part 2 is up now. Happy listening, guys. Do you have a particular campaign in mind that you're proud of? And maybe you could share another with us which was a failure?
Yeah, for sure. So one campaign that I'm proud of was a campaign we ran last year. It was a recruitment campaign. So we worked for a client that recruits students out of university. And it was really cool. Through Facebook ads, we were able to target the specific universities with the specific majors of interest to that client, to that brand. And then we were able to reflect that in the creative. So we were able to say, we had a couple of videos and also graphics that just kind of said, hey, student of this university, we want to meet you. Sign up for a session to learn more about our brand and see if you're interested. And that it worked really well. I think it resonated with the audience really well because it was shouting out specifically to their school. And it also grabbed attention really quickly because all of the ads had the name of the school right in the first few seconds or right in the graphic. So we saw a really good cost per click through to the website for signups, and then they reported at those. So they hosted some info sessions at the schools where they were recruiting from, and that's what we were trying to get people to sign up for. And they reported to me that everybody who walked in through the door was like, "Oh, I saw your ads on Instagram, or I saw your ads on Facebook. It was so cool." We had some pictures of employees who would be at the info sessions. So they're like, "Oh, I recognize you from the ads that we saw." So they saw a really good response from the ads, not only from an analytics side and Facebook ad manager, but also in person with people recognizing them and really, obviously resonating with them. So it was really cool to see. This was the first campaign that I've run on Facebook ads where there was such a good reaction with actual people, reporting that it did very well. We run other ad campaigns where it might be a global campaign, so you're not actually hearing from the individuals who see the ads that it was really effective. So it was really cool last year to be able to hear about these people who saw the ads that I created and really liked the ads, and they were really effective.
That's so great because Facebook ads is tricky.
Yeah, I've been doing Facebook ads for a couple of years now. And it is tricky. You kind of get a good sense, though, once you've been doing it for a while, you kind of get a good sense for what kind of ad is going to do well. And it really comes down to stopping people from scrolling and then delivering something of value within, like, right away that isn't asking too much. I've had campaigns that have failed where we're asking too much. We have a cold audience and we're just asking them immediately to transact or click through. And those campaigns don't do as well. But with this recruitment campaign, we were just asking people to sign up to learn more. So we're not really asking for a lot. It's a low barrier, and that often helps to get people to transact. A campaign that didn't do very well, one that we put a lot of time and effort in. We scheduled a day-long video shoot. We were going to interview. I think we ended up interviewing like 5 or 6 employees. We were there all day, whole setup. We had the lights, camera, all the gear, and we did this series of videos about the employees and telling different stories. It was really cool. Everybody loved it. When we put it out on social, it really flopped. The engagement wasn't very good. The first couple we put out did okay, and then after that it kind of trailed off. And in looking back on it, we realized we had spent too much time in creating these intros for the videos. And we created a series, and we realized in hindsight that the fact that it was a series kind of had people, they already knew what to expect, and they weren't interested in it. And within the first, we spent too long on the intro, so it didn't get into the content quick enough, so people were just bouncing, and then the next time they see it come up, they're like, not interested. So we had some good learning out of that we've been able to use, but that really flopped, and it was too bad because we had some really cool interviews that we had set up there. But you learn from your mistakes, and you move on.
Exactly what I was going to say. You learn from your mistakes, and you can't get better at something unless you do it wrong in the first place. So
that's huge. I think that's a huge insight for social media marketing in general, is that because social is something that we're posting all the time, we're pumping out so much content, we're doing so much, it's not something that we can be super perfect about. And it's kind of like it's almost like a living thing, the content that you're putting out, because it's going out so like every day, that you have so much coming out of your brand. It's kind of like its own living entity that you're just trying to morph into the right direction, rather than it being one thing that you create and you put out there and it's perfect. And this is why looking into analytics and looking at insights is so important, because you have this living entity that's out there on these platforms, and you just want to push it in the right direction, so that you're doing more video or less intros, or you're spreading it out and that kind of thing. And it's exactly what you're saying. You have to learn from your mistakes, and you can't be too proud, because if you're too proud, you'll blame it on something else, like, it was whatever it was, like, it was summertime. If we had posted the interviews over in the winter, it would have been fine. No, you have to be humble enough to say, no, I made a mistake. Let's make it better, and let's push this living entity on social in the right direction. And everybody's trying things out for the first time, right? Like TikTok comes onto the scene, and I'm sure in a few years we'll look back at the first splash that people made on TikTok and think like, they made all these mistakes, but they were trying and growing, and that's just the nature of this world.
That's it. I mean, I don't think that there are many accounts out there that got it right immediately. We just didn't know them then.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next up, does everything always go as planned? Or is there room for a little bit of impro sometimes?
Yeah, so this bounces back to what I've been saying already, with brands being polished, put together on social, and really wanting to really follow a specific brand guideline and look very good on social. This is kind of a pitfall for brands, because you need to be able to move quickly and be flexible, and improvise as you go. And it's tricky when you're dealing with brands, or if you're a part of a brand that is very specific, and it takes weeks to get artwork approved and content approved. It's hard, because I think you're absolutely right, Emily. You do have to be flexible, and you need there to be room for improvisation, especially when we're pushing more into a time when we have content that is more in the moment on some of these platforms like Instagram stories or Snapchat or TikTok, where you really have to be flexible to say, all right, today, because this wasn't there yesterday, today we have to create something and push it out. Or, we had this plan for today, but we have to change it because this has happened. And you get rewarded for that. And I think your audience appreciates that, to see an account that is like in the moment and really like active, rather than just putting out content that's been created previously. One of my favorite examples, I forget which Super Bowl it was, but do you recall when Oreo, when the power went out, Oreo posted a tweet, and they were like, you can still dunk in the dark. But that's like the perfect example, because that was one of the most memorable moments of that Super Bowl from a marketing perspective, which really is a great example, and it should be an inspiration to us all, that you need to be able to move quickly and be adaptable and improvise. Absolutely. Yeah.
If you're quick on your toes, you can get out there quickly and get the perfect message at the perfect time. I mean, obviously not every time, as you say, but everyone has the opportunity. You're right.
Yeah, I've read some breakdown from that moment. discussing Oreo and their marketing strategy and their marketing team, and I read some really good articles that were saying, that didn't happen overnight. It wasn't just someone who said, "Oh, we should make that tweet." It came from developing a culture within the marketing team of being willing to be flexible, willing to try new things, willing to not make it perfect, which I think is really what should be learned from brands that do that, and that we should be applying to the work that we're doing on social media, is that to create a culture within that marketing world that things don't have to be perfect, and that we have to be willing to try things and be happy to be flexible and not be too perfect.
And coming back to the humour side of things, like the Oreo example, and when we were talking about memes and stuff earlier, and maybe doing new things on TikTok with depending on the target audience, do you think that there are brands and businesses who really can't go there, for whom it would not be appropriate?
I'd say a lot of the brands that we work with choose not to go there because they're more business to business, and they're quite buttoned down. Humorous content, it's easy to go too far, and it is really hard to hit it just right. I think there are brands that should stay away from it. Every brand should have a mission statement for each platform that they're on, and sometimes like humor just doesn't fit into it. It's interesting, like with the TikTok algorithm, it's more true than ever, but Instagram's algorithm is pushing in this direction too. As algorithms get smarter and they can categorize content, so it's not just putting out content, putting content in people's feed because a friend liked it, or it's similar to an account that they follow, or they looked at it yesterday. Now with, think about like the Instagram Explore section and TikTok's algorithm, we're getting to a point where the platforms know what content is and they can categorize it, and then they can push it out based on what people actually like. So it's so important that you focus on one thing so that Instagram knows your entire account is about that one thing to put in front of people who might like it. And that's how you get engagement, recurring engagement, because if people love this niche, they're going to come back and engage with all your content. So if you just try to pull things that work for other people and put it into your feed, you're going to kind of throw off the algorithm in that way. And that's why the strategy you brought up, Emily, for TikTok is a smart one, and it's one that really works well on Instagram as well, that doesn't really allow for you to just try something because somebody else did it and it worked for them.
I love that that analysis of how the algorithm works, because obviously nobody really knows how it works, but that actually makes such a lot of sense.
Yeah, like Instagram can read and sort of figure out what your content is about, and I've had the opportunity to follow influencers before they became big, and see, okay, so when they shift to just posting about one thing all the time, it really helped them grow, because the algorithm likes that, but also your audience likes that. I use my own Instagram account as an example. For a little while, I was really into coffee and posting about coffee all the time, and it did well. And then I've had a couple of kids, and so obviously my interests have shifted a little bit, and I'll be posting pictures of my kids now, like interspersed with pictures of coffee. And I always use my own Instagram as an example of like what not to do, because I'm not appealing to coffee people with pictures of kids, and I'm not really appealing to like family people with pictures of coffee. And that's not something a brand should do, where you have these two different kinds of content that you're always posting. You want to have one feature. So, if I were to focus solely on coffee, then I could grow a following of coffee lovers and go in that direction. And then I would be shown more often on the Instagram Explore too, because now my content's all about coffee that's getting pushed out. And that's that's kind of like an example from a personal account to use for branded accounts too, is like, you got to make sure your focus is singular and you're really all over it, and you're part of that niche, that community on social media.
Where do you get your inspiration?
Yeah, so I pull inspiration from all over the place. This is something that I try to be super intentional about. So some things that I like to do is one, I love to read marketing books. It's really cool because they're influential marketers out there who see something that's a little bit different, and they see it all the time. They develop it into they develop their own ideas around it, and then they write a book, and then we have all of this access to those insights. So I like to read books about marketing as much as possible, to see where trends are going in marketing, but also to be able to sit back and think about things strategically. I recently read a book called Killing Marketing that was really good, talking about how content marketing is so important, and that we have to think about our content more about as media than marketing. And I thought that was a really cool book that, I'm now taking that to bring to clients to say, yeah, we're not just trying to get people to do something, we're trying to provide them something of value in of itself by consuming content. I also find like inspiration at looking at best practices, what's really like working for other people. You can go and you can research the best kind of video to post, and you might learn, okay, it's a 15-second short in story format, and that's your kind of like jump off point to figure things out. And then also like spending time on social myself. I love Alexander McQueen. I follow a lot of high-end fashion brands because I love the creativity they put into things. And it's cool. Like creativity is really just, taking something that's there and applying it in a new way. So I love to follow social media accounts and kind of take something that's really creative that they've done and looked at how can I apply that to this client. And I'm often, as I'm scrolling, I'm like, oh, we could try that for this brand. That's really cool. And then I also try to be really intentional about paying attention to things in my surroundings as I'm going about throughout my day. My wife is an avid book collector, and often I'm hanging out with the boys and I'm looking on the bookshelf, and I found a lot of inspiration just like looking at books and book covers and stuff like that, especially like classic ones and stuff like that. The way they've made the typography and the way they presented things is really cool. So it's just trying to be intentional about being present and noticing things in my surroundings to be inspired by. I find it so cool to learn how fashion is created and learn, someone was like, oh, I was visiting my dad and I saw his vintage car and it inspired me with this collection of clothes. And I think that's so cool. So I try to do that for myself. Because I think it's really important to give ourselves time and space to think of these things outside of work, outside of the pressures of work. And that often happens like throughout the day, off hours, at night and when we're hanging out with people. A really cool quote that I'll share with you from my favorite psychologist. A little disclaimer, I'm a psych major from university, so I have that kind of side of things to push into marketing. But his name is Carl Jung. He's my favorite psychologist. And he says, but without this playing with fantasy, no creative work has ever yet come to birth. The debt we owe to the play of imagination is incalculable. And this kind of is really cool and inspires me to be present and take in my surroundings and be present in everything, to look for inspiration, because you never know when you're going to come across something that's really cool and that you're going to go, yes, like this is what I've been waiting for. That will be perfect to put into that video project or that post that I have planned to create tomorrow.
Is there anything you can tell me about your work that would surprise me?
I'm in social media, so I feel like nothing I say can really surprise you. What might be something that you don't expect. I kind of must say that one of my favorite social media platforms is Pinterest. I really love the platform because it's really focused on ideas. I find it cool for the work that I do to pull ideas from there, but also I'm really into fashion, and it's cool to see trends emerging on Pinterest before they might come to other platforms and retail stores that we might see in a mall. So that might be surprising that I'm into Pinterest. The other thing is one of the new brands that we've onboarded is a cannabis company. So I'm here in Canada. Cannabis is legal here. So we're currently navigating with a cannabis company how to kind of enter into the social world, as there's a lot of stigma around cannabis, and how we want to help them navigate that and kind of figure out how to represent on social media as regulations shift over time, and they try to make a name for themselves that isn't what people are expecting.
That is interesting. So, and do you have anything in mind? Or sort of how are you going to get them on social? What are you going to post? Like, can you spoil or not?
Yeah. So the account has been running for a little while now. My recommendations were to really focus around education. There's actually a lot to know. I knew nothing about cannabis before working on this account. There's a lot to know, and there's a lot to know that kind of you can kind of do two things at once: educate people, but also try to reduce some stigma around cannabis and what it's about, and so on. Because there's some stereotypes that go along with it that legal cannabis dispensaries in Canada are trying to combat. So by educating people about cannabis, you can also kind of combat that. So that's kind of like the content we're going after. There's a lot of regulations as to what can actually be posted. So we have to be really strategic.
Okay, so 4 quickfire questions. Number 1, what takes up most of your time as a social media professional?
Researching new ideas. It's easy to throw things into a calendar or discuss with clients, but coming up with original ideas, I spend a ton of time doing that.
What is your range of tools for community management?
Oh man, we use so many. I use Iconosquare for a ton of stuff like scheduling content and a lot of analytics. We use Linktree for links and bios. We're big into SEMrush for looking at trends on the internet. We also use a lot of Google Analytics to tie in web data with social data. I'm on Google Trends a lot, figuring out what's going on, what's happening. And also it's like social media platforms themselves to research stuff as well.
What are your favorite accounts on social media?
Yeah, so like I said, I really like Pinterest, but you don't really follow specific accounts on Pinterest. My next favorite, I really like Instagram. My favorite account to follow is Alexander McQueen. They're really cool because they really seem like they're doing their own thing. They're not trying to follow trends. They post these short 15-second videos that are really creative and kind of like go against what other people are doing typically. So I really love to follow Alexander McQueen.
You've already given loads of advice to the people listening, but what would your ultimate advice to community managers be?
Get really established in the brand. Know it really well so that you can quickly know, like, right away if you're trying to be quick. Okay, this is how this brand our brand would react to something. Really get on top of that. And then I'd also advise plan time every month, every 3 months. Plan a few hours to get away, disconnect, turn things off, and really just figure out some strategy stuff. With social media, you can get so quickly tied up into what brand managers and CEOs and owners are asking from you, and also other people in the marketing team are expecting from you, and also new trends are coming out. People are putting pressure on that we have to do more of this kind of content. You need to schedule time every once in a while to like push that stuff aside and really sit down and say, okay, what do we want to do as a brand? How do we stay true to who we are at the core? And so on. Like, you need to spend that time outside of all those pressures and really look at strategy.
Yeah, back to basics and just figure out what's really important and then focus the most part of your efforts on that. Yeah, I agree. Geoff, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being so inspiring and having so many interesting things to say. For all the amazing advice, which I'm sure is going to come in handy for lots of the listeners today, as it has for myself.
It's my pleasure. I really love talking all things marketing and social media, and I like the opportunity to really dig in and talk about the meaning behind things, because as we all know, in client meetings and marketing meetings, we don't really get to talk about the blogs that we read and these ideas that we had. We really just have to talk about what we're doing tomorrow and what the marketing is going to look like. So this has been really fun to get into this conversation, and I hope it's valuable to people.